And, it takes courage to actually speak up in some of these meetings, right? Initially, when you're first joining as kind of a theme developer, and we don't, sign on a theme
baseball
developer.
bats to your analyst to...
We don't we don't pick up anybody off the street and say, hey, come on in, make sure you're wearing your mask. You can talk to Kathy. Hi, I'm Ren Leggi, Client Portfolio Manager with ARK Invest. On this season of The Switch, we're going to address 4 market inefficiencies. As always, we'll be joined by ETF trends to facilitate the discussion and make sure we don't leave anything unanswered. So let's get the conversation started on the closed-off research and investment mentality.
So Ren, let's kick this off and talk about the normal way of constructing a research operation, which I can summarize with one statement. You hire really smart people. What are you doing beyond just hiring really smart people that you think is making a difference?
Well, we hire really smart people, but we allow them to share their ideas. That's the key difference. And they share it with the public, right? And they share it within their communities of their research areas. And that allows them to receive very valuable feedback, right? And constantly kind of battle test their assumptions. So we think this approach has, especially in the innovation space, right, where areas and these technologies are moving so fast. I could hire, 300 really smart people and lock them in the room, but they couldn't possibly keep up with all that's happening around the world, right? So by putting our research out there, right, and having the entire world consume it and provide, some of these experts providing feedback, whether we're wrong or we're right, that's very valuable to the analyst in continuing kind of to iterate on that research and improve it over time. This is some of the work that we've done goes back to, the very beginning of ARK in 2014. The work that we've done on autonomous vehicles, for instance, we've been working on for, coming up on 7 years. It's only gotten better over time. And it's because we've been sharing it and improving on it and getting that feedback from, the people that are driving some of these technologies forward.
It's really innovative, Ren. Research on Wall Street is a really competitive game. And early on, it seems like you folks decided to share and make that part of the culture. I remember early on, you'd had this Friday afternoon meeting where you'd actually invite people in from the public. People from Wall Street could come into your meetings. You have podcasts where you share your research and ideas and actually try to make all your picks battle tested among the public. What have you gotten from that, and where has that helped get ARK to where it is today?
We still do it, right? It's all happening on Zoom right now, but we have about 40 to 50 people, what we call theme developers, that join the conversation. They get to listen from our analyst, kind of present on breakthroughs in their research for that week. Kathy and Brad, our director of research, kind of leads the discussion, and they pick into some of those areas. But we have these theme developers that may be experts in very specific areas, right? A battery technology professor or a genomics kind of venture capital investor. So they provide, when that analyst or a group of analysts are talking about a particular area that they're focused on, they provide some valuable insight, basically a different vantage point than we would otherwise have. And that's very valuable to not only Kathy, but the entire investment team to hear those different perspectives. That allows the analysts to go back to their desk and kind of start to incorporate some of this newly learned information, right, into some of their modeling. And they come back the next week. They meet with Kathy to go over the stocks. They meet with Brett to go over the research and build out the models. And then they present it again on the next Friday. And so, even some of those attendees will come back and have done extra work on some of the areas and present some of their views. So it's a growing group of individuals that are really providing very valuable insight, across the spectrum of technologies.
How do you guard against people really trying to just sort of push their agenda on something like that? Because these folks are not ARK employees, right? This is a broader community of people out there in academia, even in the general public. So obviously you guys have to filter that, because are you really going to get those guys to say, honestly, this research I'm doing on genomics, it's garbage. You don't want to talk about that. So there must be a filtering process where you can sort of trust but verify some of these outside experts.
Yes, no, absolutely. And, it takes courage to actually speak up in some of these meetings, right? Initially, when you're first joining as kind of a theme developer, and we don't, sign on a theme
baseball
developer.
bats to your analyst to...
We don't we don't pick up anybody off the street and say, hey, come on in, make sure you're wearing your mask. You can talk to Kathy. These are individuals that have been just sitting in, maybe just listening in. We had one, a venture capital investor, that didn't say a word for he was on 10 weeks straight, and then he opened his mouth and we're like, wow, this guy really knows a lot about a lot of areas, and then he started building the confidence of sharing those thoughts. And so it takes time, right? And when you get some of this feedback, it's pretty easy to cut through the noise, right? You either know, we're going very granular in some of these areas, right? We'll have, Simon Barnett, our genomics analyst, going into, the mechanics and the chemistry of long read sequencing, right? So, you couldn't jump in and say, hey, I'm a, PhD in genomics. I can, explain a little more better than Simon. These people have, we've had doctors in the room kind of, adding in their 2 cents. And, that's extremely valuable.
Yeah. Have there been times when maybe your team of analysts has been either hot or cold on a specific company, but because you've opened it up to people on the outside, they've actually changed their views?
It's such an iterative process. There could be bits and pieces that come from outside views, but also our own research. A good example of, a stock that we've, it was one of the highest conviction stocks. Kathy even owned it prior to founding ARK, Illumina, which is in the short read sequencing space, right? And a lot of the work that we've done on long read sequencing that Simon Barnett actually has done started and through conversation, he was presenting these ideas of, looking at the benefits and the cost declines associated with long read sequencing and how that could impact a company like Illumina, and our view started to change there. And that's one stock that we ended up exiting. It was partly due to kind of an announcement that they made with a strategic acquisition into Grail, which we didn't really like. It was kind of, they were entering a space where a lot of their customers were playing in, so they're competing with their customers, which was would have been a challenge. But also from a technology standpoint, we see where the world is going, and we don't see them being able to kind of keep up. And so that was a culmination of, conversations that we had in brainstorming sessions, Twitter battles that Simon had after he posted news on the Grail acquisition, and just internal discussions with the research team. So,
but at the end of the day, doesn't that still feed back into a financial model? Because I've heard Kathy say it over and over again. You got to hit that 15% CAGR 5-year target, or it just doesn't matter how much we like you or how much we hate you, right? Ultimately, it's about what your belief in the financial potential is, right?
Yes, exactly. That's absolutely correct, right? So if the valuation doesn't make sense, and then going back to the Illumina example, right? If we see that total addressable market shrinking for, say, short read sequencing, and we see long read starting to take hold, our valuation is likely to be lower for Illumina, right? Because of that. Because we're modeling a lot of these companies not on earnings, but more top line growth. And if so, we don't see that top line growth increasing exponentially, and those companies keeping up with that growth, that could sway us away from a company like that. And when we do the actual bottom up modeling, we may not get to that 15% hurdle rate of return. In that one, some of the scores, their competitive advantage, those scores were dropping. So that was also a signal. It's time to move out of this position, look for that new winner.
Ren, you're seeing your analysts being pretty public. When you look at normal research analysts at bigger firms, you kind of keep them under a tent. You're encouraging them to get out there. They're showing up on podcasts. They're showing up on social media. They're showing up on TV. what are the advantages of that? Because are you concerned that they may get their own reputation and somebody may swoop in and grab them?
So in terms of the research, the quality of research, right? One of the benefits of publishing the research is the quality is enhanced, right? If an analyst is working on research, that's only going to be viewed by the internal team. It may not be as high as quality, but if you're working on a research paper that's going to be published and out there for the world to see, right? And then you go on Bloomberg and talk about that. That quality has to be, very high to get
you got to make sure you're right.
You got to make sure you're right, right? But that takes months of work before some of these papers are released, and a lot of battle testing, whether it's Twitter, if it's wherever it is, or in the conference room at our brainstorming sessions. A lot goes into that, and we think that just increases the overall quality. These analysts have a great opportunity, and that's what's attracted them to ARK, right? To be able to actually put your name on the research, right, and not your boss's name. Every analyst kind of owns that research, and I think that is very rewarding for the research team in that respect. Thanks, Dave and Tom. It's been great. It's been fun as always. So we're looking forward to the next episode.